What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything cool in video games. You can always be a part of the show by going to insidethegame.ca or joining the Discord and submitting your clip to end off our show. Now, coming up on this week's episode, the guys are hitting the skate park, Corey and I are hitting the basketball court, and we're checking out Immortals Fenyx Rising. It's a big feature on that. But before we get started with the inside scoop, we got a special message by Major Nelson. Here it is.
Hi, my name is Larry Herb. Most people know me online as Xbox Live's Major Nelson. I've been working on the Xbox team for almost 20 years and been in gaming for quite a long time. Now, I'm excited to share with you that Inside the Game will be doing a 24-hour live stream on September 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/theofficial ITG and Rogers TV in support of and to raise money for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Now, Big Brothers Big Sisters is a youth mentoring organization that has been in existence for over 100 years in Canada. Their mission is simple. It's to enable life-changing mentoring relationships that ignite the power and potential of young people. If you'd like to support this great cause, head to insidethegame.ca/thebiggame. Thanks for your time, thanks for your support, and I'll see you online.
So the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War multiplayer reveal was this past week, and let me tell you, we've got a ton of new information. Not only did they kind of dive in on what we're going to expect for kind of new features for the multiplayer for Cold War, we're also going to be talking about what they're going to be bringing to Warzone and how Warzone is going to be kind of interwoven into the new game. But let's kind of get started with what Black Ops Cold War is kind of currently revealing. We're getting a ton of new locations as far as where we're going to be on the maps. We're looking at Miami, North Atlantic, Angola, Uzbekistan, and the Ural Mountains. And we're getting a new game mode called Deniable Operations. It's on all multiplayer maps, and it's a fictional narrative inspired by real historic kind of events. And there's a bunch of different kind of missions, and they're all kind of mixed up a little bit. You know, Armada, it's going to be on the North Atlantic map. It's going to be on a complete naval ship. The entire kind of mission is going to be on a ship, which I think is super cool. Miami's a kind of a dark kind of night map, and there's a lot of alleyways, kind of a sniper haven. So the way these operations kind of play out on some of these maps are going to be a little bit different because all these maps are going to be unique in their own way. But don't forget that we're going to be getting our TDM, Domination, Kill Confirm, Search and Destroy, Hardpoint, all that stuff is coming back with a few different changes. Domination, we're going to be getting larger capture areas, which I think is going to kind of lead into bigger firefights on the objective points, which I think is going to be an absolute blast because Domination's already crazy as is. But we're also going to be getting a few hints on Hardpoint now. So before the new point actually comes up, both teams will be notified where that point's going to be, so everybody can kind of get there. It stops people from, maybe if they don't know the spawns, from kind of losing out, because in the current game right now, if you know where all the hardpoint spawns are and the other team doesn't, you're always going to be on the hardpoint first. So this kind of levels the playing field there, and I think that's a really good move. There will also be a new VIP escort mode, 6v6 with one person as the VIP in the multiplayer, which I think is going to be a really fun mode. And there's also combined arms domination. Infantry and vehicles collide in a 12v12 version of domination, which I think, like we said, domination is already crazy game mode as is. You go 12v12 now, it's going to be absolutely insane. But more importantly, for Call of Duty Black Ops, we're going to be looking for beta dates. October 8th and 9th, PS4 Early Access. October 10th and 12th is going to be PS4 Open. October 15th to 16th is also PS4 Open, Xbox and PC Early Access. October 17th through 19th, open to all platforms. So there is definitely a ton of info dropping for multiplayer for Cold War, but they also wanted to touch on Warzone, because right now Warzone is Call of Duty's biggest success. This battle royale is absolutely insane. People are playing it all over the world. Modern Warfare's it's popped off huge, and the fact that they were able to intertwine Warzone with this game, I think really brought joint success to both titles. And the fact that they're going to be bringing Warzone and everybody's progress, anything you've invested in the game, as far as real money, everything gets carried over into Warzone for Black Ops. And the way they're going to kind of intertwine this one now is going to be very similar to what they're doing in Modern Warfare. So I think that level of success is still going to be there, but we're getting a few new modes for Warzone. We're going to be getting Fire Team, which is going to be kind of a cool 4v4 style, or 4-person team squad style, smaller map objective based battles, and it's a little more strategic. And they've also got Fire Team Dirty Bomb, which actually gets your team going around this map area collecting uranium and setting off these dirty bombs, which I think is pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see how people play out these different game modes. We did get a bit of a taste with some of the top streamers playing this game during the live event, so it was kind of cool to see. But I think as people get used to these new game modes, obviously you're going to see the strategies come out. So it's super exciting to see that Call of Duty is moving forward with this new Black Ops Cold War game with all these new features, and kind of making it exciting again to jump into a new Call of Duty, because like we said, there's a new one every year, so they gotta make it different. So I think with them going back to the Black Ops series, but then kind of taking this own twist with Cold War and the way they're kind of going about some of the new game modes, I think is going to be a huge success. And then you bring the already accessible Warzone into your game, and having these two teams work together, I think is just going to, it's going to mean there's just more and more success coming down the road for Call of Duty, and I can't wait to play this new game.
So with the UB Forward event come and gone, we got a whole ton of information that Drew got us all caught up on. But I'm going to talk more specifically about Rainbow Six Siege, because there is a whole ton of information that I'm going to really try to cram in this little section. Starting things off, we had the latest season drop with Sam Fisher. We got new guns, new gadgets, and just a whole plethora of things. I mean, that you can customize your scopes. There's a whole ton of new scopes that they've added to the game. Like I said, I can't even get started on all the list of things that they've changed, but you definitely have to check it out, because Chalet is really good, actually. The rework they've done is awesome. But anyways, let's talk about the esports side of things, because it actually has expanded in an insane way. We're talking about an actual World Cup for Rainbow Six Siege. This is really cool, because I love the whole Olympic style thing where you get to represent your country and you just get to see everyone from all around the world kind of fighting for that trophy. So this all to say, we're getting our first actual World Cup, and they're going to be over 40 countries qualifying, and by the end of it we're going to have 20 teams actually competing. So once we kind of get more information about this, I'll keep you guys all updated. I cannot wait to see what Canada does and what the rest of the world has to offer, because I know that we're ready.
Well, Ubisoft had another UB Forward, and with that came a bunch of news, and I've got the rundown for you. We all know Watch Dogs Legion is just around the corner, coming up on October 29th, but what we didn't know was Aiden Pierce was coming with it. Post-launch content, Aiden Pierce will be fully playable with an all-dedicated storyline in the season pass of Watch Dogs Legion. Sam Fisher is back, but not in a Splinter Cell game. He's out right now for Rainbow Six Siege. They also let us know that Rainbow Six is making its way to next-gen consoles for free. PlayStation 5 and PlayStation X players will be able to play the game in 4K at 120 frames per second. They also revealed a couple games that will be making a return. Scott Pilgrim is coming back, and one of the all-time favorites, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Relive the prince's journey for redemption after unwittingly releases the Sands of Time on the Sultan's kingdom. Battle sword-wielding enemies, maneuver trap-filled rooms, and of course, rewind that Sand of Time to make your progress throughout the game. We'll be getting hands-on with Prince of Persia: Sands of Time on January 21st, 2021. The Division 2 is getting a new DLC. Warlords of New York must be purchased in order to play this. We're getting, on September 22nd, The Summit. The summit will allow Warlords of New York players to experience what the Division has to offer in a single replayable mode. Playing in squads or solo, the summit will take Division agents to a high-rise building where they can scale up to 100 floors of action. Players can choose to focus on select sections of the building. This allows them to play at a preferred difficulty level and be rewarded accordingly for their efforts. A new title coming out of Ubisoft Annecy, Riders Republic, invites players to an exhilarating social playground. Consider it steep with a mix of trials. From arid canyons to snowy mountains, Riders Republic allows players to ride through some of the most magnificent destinations on Earth. The American National Parks, Bryce Canyon, Yosemite Valley, and a whole lot more. Competitive races and track challenges, multiplayer arenas, and online cups will have players competing for a long time. Riders Republic will display more than 50 players on next-gen consoles and PC, and more than 20 players on current-gen consoles. Isn't that interesting? Ghost Recon Breakpoint is back. A new story adventure, Red Patriots, begins when Treystone asks Raven Rock, a Russian separatist group, and their agents, the Bodarks, to plan attacks on US soil. Players who own the Year 1 pass will be able to adventure into 10 full missions. Once completing those missions, players will unlock 26 high-quality rewards. We'll be getting a new class, the Pathfinder class. It lets players control a rogue Azrael drone through their special ability, the Armoros interface. This special tool, the Uplink Protocol, refills the Pathfinder's skill gauge and is only found in well-hidden tactical caches with other high-quality loot. The new PvP milestone missions are related to the Pathfinder class and offer 2 exclusive rewards for completing the achievements. And last but not least, the game formerly known as Gods and Monsters is now out in the wild, with Immortals Fenyx Rising being renamed and reworked. I actually went hands-on with that, so look forward to that later on in this week's episode.
So we've been full of Nintendo news over the past few weeks, especially with the 35th anniversary coming out. Well, guess what? Nintendo's dropped another big one. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So this is going to be a sequel in the Hyrule Warriors series, and this is also going to be happening 100 years prior to the Breath of the Wild storyline. But it's also going to be a Hyrule Warriors game in the Breath of the Wild environment, because the Warriors team and the Zelda team have worked really closely together to kind of cultivate this deep storyline that kind of supersedes the first Breath of the Wild game, because we're waiting on that second game, and Nintendo said we're not getting it 2020, so chances are we're going to see it maybe 2021, possibly 2022. So they have come out and said that they're working hard to make sure that the experience of Breath of the Wild 2 is just as good as the first game. So to be able to bridge the gap with a game like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I think is a great move here, because everybody's kind of wanting to scratch that Zelda itch if they're not playing Breath of the Wild, like a lot of people still are. But if you're a fan of the Hyrule Warriors series, the gameplay is there. It's all back with that huge kind of over-the-top battle aspect. There's a ton of characters with a bunch of abilities. Like, this looks like a great game, and I think it's one that people will love to jump back in, because when the original game came out in 2014, it sold over 1 million copies in no time. So I know a lot of people have been waiting for this sequel, and the fact that they can get it before they can get Breath of the Wild 2, I think is going to be a really good play here for Nintendo.
Alright, so the moment has finally come where Xbox's prices have been revealed. Now, they didn't actually do it themselves. It happened at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. I'm not sure even who leaked it. But I must say that Xbox or Microsoft responded masterfully. They kind of just tweeted out this meme, and it's this iconic kind of Muppet figure that is absolutely hilarious. I died when I saw it. But anyways, this all to say, finally, we got the price drop for the Xbox Series S and Series X. $299 US for the Series S and $499 for the Series X. Now, we actually got some specs for the Series S as well. So all this, we finally know everything about these consoles. We've been waiting so long and speculating on what this thing was going to look like and what exactly it was going to be capable of, and honestly, this is insane what the Series S is offering at such a low price point. You're getting great hardware, honestly just a not slightly, but a lower resolution from the Series X, but all the same gaming capabilities. It's honestly incredible. It's an all digital console, kind of like we were also speculating, but with the Game Pass and everything that Xbox is offering, with EA Play being integrated into Game Pass as well, all this is insane. Like, Xbox is just gaining more and more value at no extra cost, and I'm excited to see what happens on November 10th when these consoles actually launch.
Adam, get your head out of the clouds. Adam, you and I checked out a game coming to early access on Steam, and it's called Cloud Gardens. It's a unique, I don't even know if you call it a puzzle game or just a relaxing Zen garden sim.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to kind of describe this game. Basically, you're given a platform, and then from there, you get these little, like almost a ball of greenery, and then you plant it, and then from there it grows out, and you want to keep growing to fill up your meter to move on to the next level. Like, it's man, I've never
definitely
played
different.
Absolutely, right? Like, I've never played anything like this, and it's kind of a weird one to talk about too. Like, what was your overall impressions, Adam?
Yeah, like you, when I first started, you kind of get in the first level and there's a big street sign and you're like, what's going on? There's very little direction, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, there's like a seed, you click the seed and you kind of throw it on the sign and it starts growing. So it took me a couple levels to figure it out that you kind of got to grow these plants across your whole building or ground or car or whatever obstacle they give you. And then eventually you pass the level by growing more and more flowers, essentially.
Overall, yeah, I think the overall goal is to grow as much as you can and to flower and bloom as much as possible, right? So as you progress further along, you're given other things. So flowers will blossom, and then you click on the flower, and then that flower will go over to this corner that fills up like a meter that allows you to get other flower plants to keep going, and then you put like signs on top of signs, and it cuts off branches, but yet it grows in other sections. Like, man, this is honestly, just take a look at the gameplay in the background, because this one is one of the weirdest games I think I've played in a long time.
But you know what? I must say, I did start off a little weary, and then I played it for about 3 straight hours last night. Because it does get addictive, you know. I know you're a big art guy. Did you find you were being artistic with it, or were you just chucking everything out?
I was just chucking. Yeah, I wasn't actually taking my time of focusing on anything. I was just like,
right.
Nope, throw it here, we'll throw it there, and see what I can do. But it did take me a bit to kind of figure out, what am I supposed to do in the first place, right?
Yeah,
It's so weird to think that you're just growing a plant on the side of a building or a car or wherever, and then you're throwing junk on top of it. And that's like it's just bizarre that this is actually somebody's creation. But it's, again though, like you said, right, 3 hours last night, and you just kind of kept going. You get in the flow of, well, where can I grow this thing next? And you want to keep going and see what happens, and what's the next level, and what's the next level after that. All in all, like, I kind of thought it was cool.
Definitely, it does get progressively a little harder and harder, right? It's not just easy. I did find a couple times it lagged out. I don't know if you found that. Like, when I unlocked the cactus seed, I hit the box, the seed showed up, and then it was like you couldn't do anything. So there was a couple times. There was a couple times where I did have to restart, but it did play pretty well.
No, it was smooth. What do you think of the overall art direction? It kind of gave me that that Minecraft touch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was kind of like in between that. The graphics weren't great, but the graphics weren't bad type thing. I mean,
Yeah,
when
it's
the
like
plants grow, it looks good, and all the flowers, they all react nicely. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It's got this 8-bit feel to it, right? It's kind of it's chunky, but yeah, it's kind of stylized at the same time.
Right, exactly.
So as we play along, you unlock certain items, and you take those items into the sandbox mode, Adam. So basically what it is you are creating your own level in a sense, and you know, you're able to put on buildings, and you can use ladders and other things you've acquired as you progress through the somewhat of a campaign, I guess you would call it. And then you just produce your own level. I thought it was kind of neat to sit and figure out what you want to do, but it was kind of limited because the platform itself is so small, right? It's just like the levels.
Right.
So you can't put a ton of stuff on there without it actually falling off the platform. So it's I don't know, it's something cool to see that was added into the game as well.
Right, right.
All right, Adam, I think that is it for this artistic stylized game, Cloud Gardens. You gonna recommend or not recommend this one?
You know what? I'm gonna recommend it. It's definitely a game for a specific type of person, maybe the artsy person. But there's a gamer out there who's gonna like this one. I'd say check it out. I'm gonna play it a bit more for sure.
Yeah, you know what? I think, man, honestly, this is weird. Part of me wants to go no, and then part of me is like, yeah, absolutely. So it is very stylized, right? So you're either gonna, I think you're either gonna like it or you're not gonna like it. But for me, if you have a bit of that time where you're looking to just chill and relax, I'm gonna recommend it as well, man. This one's just different. It's cool.
Nice.
A new twist on post-apocalyptic gardening. Neither of us knew what to expect, but found ourselves hooked within the game to go further. Cloud Gardens is unique. Check it out. Nate, I was able to get hands on a game formerly known as Gods and Monsters. We're talking about Immortals Fenyx Rising by Ubisoft Quebec. These guys are the team behind Assassin's Creed, and instantly brings that sense of AC to Immortals Fenyx Rising. It kind of got that cross between Assassin's Creed and Zelda. Gonna be honest, that Breath of the Wild touch, right, with that whole art style. They had its initial release set for February 25th, 2020, but then after kind of taking it back a little bit, they wanted to go with something a little bit more realistic looking. Even though it has its own unique art style, it definitely doesn't look as cartoonish as it did prior to when they initially were going to launch the game. So they took it back, redid some of the graphics, and they actually said they redid a lot of the game itself as well. Yeah, and my time with the game was about 2.5 hours. I was in one region, and there's about 7 or 8 regions total that you can explore. And what's going on here is there's a narration between Zeus and Prometheus that kind of give you the overall story of Phoenix and herself as a demigod, and how she's kind of come back to save the island because Typhon is basically kind of destroyed it all, and there are no gods anymore. So she's out to kind of free the gods and bring the gods back. So it's kind of a unique twist on Greek. Cool. Yeah, it's very cool, dude. It's a twist on Greek mythology. And that's what I said. I had about 2.5 hours of game time, and in the region I was in, I was able to get a sense of the combat, and it's not overly complicated. It's something I think that's relatively quick and easy to get into, but when you start to realize what combos you can pull off, like you've got the abilities over on your right stick or your right analog section, and you know how you can use it with the trigger, and then you use your, I was using an Xbox controller, so you can use I think it was LB, you hold down and then it'll pop up your abilities and you select which one you want. And I was using a lot of the time, this one is kind of, it lifts you into the air and it shoots a bunch of arrows out, and then you could combo that with this big massive hammer that would come thundering down on everybody. It was super cool to pull some of these combos off with your abilities and things like that. I was into a ton of puzzles. Over the 2.5 hours, I was able to almost accomplish about 80% of that region out of the total of 7 that I had. But the combat felt fluid. The only real problem I had with the game was that the run button is actually X. I had to hold down X. So
That's kind of an odd button.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was definitely a little weird. So from there, I asked we were teamed up with a Ubisoft rep that would kind of guide us through certain sections of the game if we had any questions, that sort of thing. And I asked him if we straight up, can we remap the controls? And he said, yes, you can. So when the game does release on December 3rd, it's coming this year, so not too far away now at this point, but you'll be able to remap the control. I said, great, because the first thing I'm going to do is remap that run button to my left analog stick. Dude, I don't know how many times I pressed down and it didn't run, right? So there are puzzles within puzzles, and there's these portals you transfer to, and they allow you to go and get Zeus's lightning bolt, and the lightning bolt allows you to get your upgrades. And there are certain upgrades, they have this light RPG element and a crafting system within the game. There was a skill tree, but it was locked off for the demo that we were in, but they kind of touched on things. Yeah, so they give you like god abilities and things like that, so it's something to look forward to and that kind of thing. I made a couple other notes. There's lots to collect. They always have collectibles. Like a lot of Ubisoft open world games have that, you know, that feel of, okay, we'll go over this way. They also brought back the thing called Far Sight. It's basically from the Assassin's Creed series. It allows you to click, and it kind of allows you to pan around your location and take a look and scan over objectives more or less that you can find. Instead of going right to the map, you just click in your stick and it brings up Farsight and allows you to go and check out the surrounding areas, and then you can find quests and things to loot. And there's chests, there's a whole day night cycle as well, and there's some chests you can only get at nighttime, which I thought was pretty cool. And you know the Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed Origins, if you ever played that, if you held down, I think it was a start button, you could instantly, your character would sit down and then it would flip into nighttime, right? Well, you can do that here with Phoenix as well. You can have a seat and she'll flip it from day cycle to night cycle, and then that will, if you're in the area, sometimes that'll spawn a night chest. I think I saw 2 night chests. And basically, if you see it during the day, it's just this this like holographic image, and you can't do anything about it. But then you come back at nighttime, or you just transfer over to nighttime, then it's well guarded. And I think that's one of the coolest parts too, is the creatures you fight in here, because it's Greek mythology, we're going up against like Minotaurs and Medusa and Cyclops and things of that nature,
really
right?
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I had a good time. It was intuitive enough that I wanted to play more, and I couldn't wait to, you know, get into the game and where else could I explore. And it's all about exploring the world and finding out more secrets and things like that. And the puzzles, I thought some of the puzzles are pretty easy, some of them are pretty challenging. There's this one I did, you had to guide your arrow through certain sections, and as I'm doing this, I got to a different area and I had to shoot it through, I think it was through the gate, but I could see the ledge. So I actually, the guy I was working with, he said, well, okay, you got to use one of your abilities here to go do this. I said, okay. Well, I didn't realize he meant just this arrow guided thing. So I used one of my abilities, you know, the one I just mentioned with the combat, where you shoot up the arrows from the ground. I did that, and then I double jumped over the wall, got in, and finished off the so it was kind of comical. He's like, man, I haven't seen anybody do that. I was like, well, that's cool. I wasn't sure what else to do, so that's what I did. It was cool. I had a good time. There's lots of customization with the character too. Phoenix, you can design her or him to be however you see fit, which is really cool. There's a lot of elements to the gear system that they're bringing to the game as well. So there's lots to discover, explore, and upgrade.
That's really cool, man. I'm really digging the graphic style that they've chosen. You know, since when we first saw it, honestly, it looks very different. Seeing some of the Cyclopses and Minotaurs, it looks really cool. It's got that Breath of the Wild feel, like you said.
Sure does.
Definitely with that stamina meter when you're kind of traversing on these cliff sides.
Well, that's
it has very much of a Zelda feel.
No, absolutely. Stamina plays a big portion of your progress through the game. It's a struggle, honestly. It really is. And it is one of the upgrade features that you'll be able to kind of work towards, because, man, like you can get on a mount, and your mount will have a huge stamina meter where you have just like more or less two rows. And like when you start climbing a mountain, you really need to gauge, just like Breath of the Wild, right? You really need to gauge how far you're going to go, or you're just not going to make it.
How would you consider the boss fights?
So there was one boss I was able to get in and battle. It wasn't too overcomplicated. I was able to get through it the first time. It came pretty close. I thought I was gonna die. Like, it was close, but it was fun. I was nice to get in there, and it was just, I don't know, like, it wasn't too complicated. It was a nice boss fight. It was definitely a beginner level boss fight too, right? So, but the world I think that they've created with this Greek mythology and the characters and everything around it is gonna have, if you like Greek mythology, I think this has a lighthearted touch that will get you in, that you can be playing with everybody, and whoever like sitting on the couch and watching you is gonna have a good time as well. I had a lot of fun when I was playing this, even though it was short. By the time it wrapped up, I was like, okay, I know I'm not allowed to go explore other areas, but that's like the next thing I wanted to do, right? I was ready to head off.
That's really what you want with these types of games. So man, that's exciting too. It's coming out this year, you said December?
Yeah, on December 3rd. So, and one of the other things too I thought was really cool is if you're in a big group battle, and if you work the angles properly, the enemies actually can hit the other enemies. So
that's fun. The friendly fire.
Well, exactly. So yeah, there's a bit of a friendly fire thing going on, right? So the Minotaur, he'll charge, but if you line up the charge properly, you can get behind other enemies and he'll barrel right through them, so they'll lose health too.
Do they ever turn against each other, or is it more just like they'll wound each other?
No, they'll just wound each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not like Doom where they just start fighting each other.
No, not at all. No.
But that's still really cool. I like that. That's something you don't see a lot in most games, honestly. So. No,
I thought it was a nice touch. I thought it was super cool. They have a good touch on air mechanics as well, because you can do a whole air combo a lot of time, and if you're able to glide with it's like these Pegasus wings too in certain areas. If you get up high enough to go get to this next quest or a puzzle mechanic, you can actually glide over. But again, you gotta watch your stamina meter, right? That plays a big part in the game itself.
Alright, man, so you did mention earlier that there's this RPG system, so you kind of gotta break it down for me. Is it this power level system where each piece of gear has its own kind of armor that you slowly progress forward? Are they like legendaries? Do they break down like in Breath of the Wild, or are they permanently there?
No, it's basically you're getting new gear as you go, right? It's that's what I mean. It's lighthearted. It's a quick system. It allows you to get in and hunt for new loot. You're always looking for something new, but you're also able to go out in the world and grab. You're able to craft items too, so you can grab flowers and things that are out there, and then go to a crafting station, and then you'll be able to work on getting like health potion and stamina potions and things like that. But when it comes to the gear, you're able to swap out new helmets, new weapons, new armor, and all that kind of stuff, and then make your Phoenix look how you want Phoenix to look. Which is, man, one of my favorite things to do is designing and getting my own character to look like mine. So that way, when you're playing, your Phoenix looks like yours, and my Phoenix looks the way I want Phoenix to look, which is always cool.
Okay, that's so. other than cosmetically, do they actually do certain, like, do they have a level system per se? Or is it just like, you know, this helmet looks like this and it has these buffs?
No, they all have certain stats to them and things like that, right? So you're going to want to pay attention to what perks this piece of gear is going to have versus that lesser piece of gear maybe that you have. Like one helmet will outdo the next helmet sometimes, or it could be a lesser of the two, and you're not going to want to use that helmet, right?
Okay. So yeah, it's, I guess so. It is this. You're kind of constantly getting new loot.
Yep, absolutely. There's definitely that looting kind of system within it. It gives you that very touch of Assassin's Creed Origins. I wouldn't say it's as in depth as Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think I would step it back to Origins. Yeah, exactly, right? So it's allowed to, I think, bring in players that maybe aren't that familiar with these systems and still be able to learn them, that aren't going to overpower them and overcomplicate things too much to where they're going to get frustrated and leave the game.
Yeah. I also saw that you have a mount. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the mount is pretty cool. It's this steel horse, and when you're out in the world, actually, you can find other ones and tame them to make new mounts, which is always pretty neat.
That's cool. Yeah, because they're metal. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. The game is really cool, and then the way it's told through the narration, at least in our demo here, it was told in this fourth wall. Like they were breaking down the fourth wall between Zeus and Prometheus, and they were making jokes and cracks about Ubisoft themselves, right? Now that was tailored a little bit towards the demo of the game, but there is a lot of that sense of humor as well in the game itself. So I think that was really cool. That's what I mean. It's got that lighthearted touch, and the enemies aren't like, nothing here is scary, right? It's got that charm to it. I think it's going to be really appreciated by a lot of people, and it's just addicting to get in, search the world, grab new loot, and just do other puzzles, find more to the story, and just glide around. And the world is absolutely stunning, man. The thing, like, it looks great.
It looks fantastic, and we've seen a few different biomes, so it's not just like this kind of desert, not really deserty, but you know, this mountainous area that we're seeing. We've seen so much.
Oh yeah, no, it's very cool. So Nate, that was Immortals Fenyx Rising. This is looking pretty good, man. I gotta be honest. I was hooked for my 2.5 hours, and that was just scratching the surface. So I definitely can't wait to get more in depth on this on December 3rd.
Oh man, I cannot wait to get my hands on this too, to review it with you, to be honest. So I have one last question for you, man.
Yep.
Where can we play this? Is this going to be just on the next generation consoles? Is this going to be on PC? Where are we going to be able to play this?
No, actually, man, Ubisoft is bringing this to absolutely everything. PC, Switch, Stadia, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, PS5, PS4. Like, it's everywhere. So everybody's going to be able to get their hands on this on December 3rd. And yeah, this is going to be a great holiday title. I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh man, yeah.
Come on, Corey. Just sink the basket already.
Over the UK and then add it up and get back to me. I'm not that for me. Madman, they go mad for me. Who the f when they gassed you up like you're good enough to be clashing me? Oh, please stop harassing me. Charge me up and put gas in me. Them little fish wanna try a ting. Oh man, the audacity. I got blood in my inbox, sending me eyes. Living on the edge to the end of our lives. Wolf in the sheepskin telling me lies. Sometimes I love so ahead of my time. Mainstream.
Well, Corey, it's been an interesting year, but it's a new season, and we're back on the courts. We're playing NBA 2K21, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. We've had some slight changes and some major changes that have made the game a little bit more difficult than what we're used to, and I'm obviously talking about the new shooting mechanic. That is honestly the biggest struggle with the game, and Man, I don't know. Like I'm a shooting guard. Corey, my guy is a shooting guard, and I can't shoot. Like when you first start off, that is the biggest struggle. I've always gone to the shooting guard. I loved when I play basketball to actually just shoot the ball. That's what I love to do the most. So that's the kind of my play style when I actually play the game. Get into that, they completely changed the mechanics of the game. Within days of launch, there's a patch for it, and the patch honestly fixed it a little bit. It did, but I found the only way I was actually starting to sync anything was when I completely upgraded my character in the shooting field and had it all maxed out, and that's when I started syncing baskets. I would get the odd green here or there, but dude, for the most part, if you're not hitting that line, you're not making a ball.
No, you know what? I'm right there with you, Drew. It's, again, these sports games year in, year out, the biggest thing for them is to try to differentiate this year's version opposed to last year's, right? And again, it's never easy to make the game completely different because more often than not, people don't want you to change it completely. They just want tweaks and things, just moved around slightly just to make the experience that much more enjoyable. And in NBA, I think what they tried to do is with this, especially with the shooting mechanic, is that was the major change this year, right? Because pretty well everything else in the game stayed fairly similar as far as they changed the menu layout a little bit. It's a little more simplified this year, which I like. Yeah. But the major change this year, like you said, was the shooting mechanic. And so last year, I played as a perimeter shooter. I was a pass first guard, but I shot threes. Very Steph Curry-ish, right? So the idea was, it took me a while grinding my player out to get the ability to really start nailing those three-pointers. But in this game, with the shooting mechanic the way it is, I can't even use the analog stick to shoot because they've made it so difficult. So last year, it was just a pull back and release. And it was kind of like you get your player's timing and you kind of learn your jump shot mechanic and that whole action. Almost half the time, you don't even have to look at the bar. You just know when to release the shot because of where your guy's animation is. This year, you have to pull back on the stick and then aim right to left at the same time to get into the small window that there is and then release. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll make the shot. Because let me tell you, when I first started it, because they don't tell you that that's the change right off the bat when you jump into the My Career and start your own player like you and I did at the onset here. And it was it was so difficult. Like, I had to go into practice and training to figure out actually how the mechanic worked before I could even use it in game. And even when I got to the game, I still couldn't shoot. So I'm just kind of left holding the X button, which is just like an old swing meter, right? It's the same idea that it was last year. But what I liked is I use the analog stick for outside shooting and then usually inside shooting as well. But this year, I can't use the analog stick anywhere other than inside the key.
So, no, absolutely. I wasn't scoring anything unless I was down low, to be honest. So if I'm in the key to about 15 feet, somewhere in around there, I would often sink the shot. But having that turnaround jump shot or just, off the dribble to shoot from the three-point line, I was starting to sink them more as the game progressed along. But it was really that grind to get my character up to full max before I was sinking anything. And when you get into the game, obviously you don't expect to, make every basket, but at the same time, you want to be able to score something, right? So by the time I wrapped up the career, I was scoring anywhere between 20 to 30 points a game, which was, it felt rewarding, I guess you could say at the same time. But I also want to get in there and dunk that ball too. So to change up the shooting mechanic, when I first started, I was all on the analog stick and then immediately went to my buttons and figured it out that way. But I found this year too, to see the meter, I found it difficult to actually track where my meter was and to see it fill up to the point of release. And if you were in close to that window, sometimes you got lucky, sometimes you didn't. And I want to touch on the career, honestly, because when we play these games, a lot of people, I was talking to my son about this, and a lot of people, I almost feel like this is Call of Duty in a sense, because some people will play the campaign or they play the multiplayer, right? And a lot of people will skip the campaign and go straight into the multiplayer. And NBA 2K is similar to the fact that you can jump into My Career or you can go right to the park and you bypass that whole career system, right? And I'm not really one for the park because honestly, the shooting mechanic is just too difficult and we just get slaughtered in the park.
Yeah, it was hard last year.
Exactly. And this year, though, there's been a cool change. The fact that for the first time in a very long time, the park is redefined, is now actually at the beach and is bigger, and there's a lot of things to do down there. It's really cool to get into the park, but I spent a lot of my time doing My Career mode. My Career mode followed along the story of Junior, who was honestly just a boring dull character and a dull storyline. He's kind of in the shadows of his father growing up through the whatever and trying to get into his career, and then he meets a girl and then she disappears, and then he goes into, it's just like blah blah blah. And I was bored stiff going through the career. And that's unfortunate. You know what they should do? They should bring Spike Lee back and have him rewrite another career, because that story was decent. It was cool and had entertainment value right there that had you in a story that you want to be a part of. But this year, like, they called the guy Junior. Like, seriously? Like, come on. I get you need some kind of generic name that even though you put in my own personal name, it's not going to be the same. But Junior is just so generic and boring. It's just, there's no personality. And Junior was dull. Half the time you get a foul, I get a foul and go to the foul line, but my guy after the foul will just like dead stare off into space. No reaction, no nothing.
It's true.
Like, I was just, honestly, Corey, for most part of the game, I was pretty bored.
So, Drew, I know you were kind of grilling the career mode a little bit, how we didn't really get much change from last year. And you know what, I'm definitely going to agree with you there, but at the same time, some of the other game modes, we did see a little bit of change. And I jumped into my team. We were lucky enough to be able to get the Mamba Forever pack, so that gave me a ton of new card packs to be able to kind of jumpstart my team. And I really like this card management style. I've always been into this. I played it in Madden. I liked Hockey Ultimate Team and NHL, so my team is something I always at least like to jump into. So there's a ton of kind of new content here. When you first get into the My Team hub, there's probably about 10 or 12 different tiles you can select on that, take you to 3-on-3s, 5-on-5s. There's special 3-on-3 like activities you can do to unlock certain cards. Like, there's a ton of stuff to do in this game mode, and I think it's honestly where people really spend a lot of their time here in NBA, whether it's games past or this title now, is there's so much customization options. I mean, you're looking at picking up teammates on certain teams so you can get dynamic duos for your team, so they have, kind of boost their statistics a little bit more. So there's kind of all these cool, interesting things in this game mode that kind of go a lot deeper than what you just see on the main menu. But moving to some of the other game modes like My GM, not much has changed. It's just the same mode over and over again. And honestly, My GM is one of those modes in some of these sports games that actually works out almost better than the kind of My Teams or the Ultimate Team type game modes. But when they don't touch it and they don't change it from year to year, well, nobody's going to use it, right? Like you said, the career's there, so there's a story that you can jump into. My Team's definitely a lot deeper than most of the other game modes. So there's a lot more to kind of look at there. So game modes like, even just hopping online versus or doing the My GM, they kind of just fall into the background, and that really hurts this because, again, these sports titles need to differentiate themselves, and I'm just not sure if 2K21 has done it for NBA this year. But if we gotta score it, Drew, what do you think you're going to give it?
You know what, I'm kind of on the fence because I've always been a big fan of the game, but at the same time, this year just didn't seem to be that next step in evolution that we're looking for, and it's just not enough. It does kind of feel like a bit of a reskin. We do know next gen is around the corner, so I wonder if that has anything to do with it, and they're starting to already focus on what can they do to make next year's more special than this year's, right? So hopefully we'll see more improvements next year, but the shooting mechanic was a big hindrance in this year's game. And with not too many changes and the story being one of the typical highlights for my own play style, and it's just being so boring this year, I'm there with the 6.5.
You know what? I can't disagree with you. I was kind of humming and hawing about what I wanted to give this game because I really enjoyed NBA 2K20. I had a lot of fun getting into that, enjoying learning that shooting mechanic. And now I'm jumping into the next game and I have to relearn it all over again, and I'm way worse at this game than I was at the last game. I've had a really tough time getting that shooting mechanic right down, getting really nailing it. I'm just having a tough time with it, but I did enjoy My Team and the changes they made to that. Unfortunately, some of the other game modes, again, were cut a little shy, but overall, I think I'm right there with you with a 6.5.
Nice.
And the rebound goes to the Pelicans. Greg, as scores go, Kevin Durant's as efficient as any.
Big changes to the shooting mechanic make getting into this one difficult at times, but the new My Team features and refreshed neighborhood for my career were definitely the highlights of this one.
It gets even more impressive. Durant takes so many shots where he's covered and is still efficient. It's just mind-blowing. And I like to see this. They're calling his number early, and he's delivering.
Well, he's going to just keep going now. That's early confidence for him.
Now, here's ball. Off to a good start.
Well, it looks like I'm skating back to the 90s in this awesome remaster. Well, like I said in the intro of this video, this is a beautiful remaster. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 has been done perfectly, or near perfectly in my opinion. Now, this game dates way back to the 90s. 1999, I believe, was the first one when it came out. I played it a lot on 64, and you know, that was a revolutionary title of its time. Skateboarding games, I don't even know if they were really a thing at that point, but they made it a thing with this game. And then the second one, they just added customization features and just new and improved maps. So it was just a great era back in the day. So now revisiting it in 2020, you know, I was kind of worried because it is a 1990 game, but wow, this is incredible. They completely knocked it out of the park. The graphic fidelity is perfect. It looks like a 2020 title. The way the game plays, it's a little sped up from the original, but not too much where it feels kind of like it's not the original still. So wow, all this to say, incredible work. Now, for those who actually haven't played this game before, the kind of premise of the game is you complete challenges on maps to unlock more maps and further upgrade your skater or skaters. Now, there are preset characters in the game, of course, like our beloved Tony Hawk and all those great classics from the original, but they actually brought in new skateboarders, which is great. You know, it really kind of helps bring the new crowd and the old crowd and just meshes it all together, I think, really well. And like I said, you can upgrade your characters, and there's a lot to be done. You can upgrade your airtime, your manual ability, your grind ability, all that fun stuff is all packaged within this. Now, what's great is while you're playing this game, the entire time you're unlocking all these different challenges. While completing all these challenges, you're constantly unlocking new stuff, be it for your new character that you've created, which you're allowed up to 4, or whether it's Tony Hawk and you just want to max him out and just play as the iconic legend that we all know from way back in the day. So a great mode that they've introduced into this game is create a park, because in this there is so much customization. I've seen so many people create some wacky parks, some really creative parks, and one park that was way high up in the sky and it was just one big long grind rail they had to try and achieve. So anyways, it is really cool. Now, I didn't dabble too much into it because, well, my creative side isn't my strong side, but that being said, there is a lot to do. You don't actually get everything right off the get-go. You're kind of forced to play the game and actually unlock more of the cosmetic stuff as you play. So there's just, like I said, so much to offer already within this one mode. Another thing I have to touch up on too is, of course, multiplayer. They have quick play, which offers ranked and kind of casual, so it does make it a little less harsh for us who aren't so great at the game, but still in casual, it can still be pretty tough. But that all being said, the game modes are there. You can also play in a private lobby, which is pretty cool. Of course, you can play horse and pig like you could way back in the day, and they even offer it on split screen, which is absolutely great. So there are actually a couple things that I have to mention that this game maybe could have improved on. One of them being that the online connectivity isn't perfect. Now, granted, the game is new, so I'm sure they will kind of work out those kinks over time, but that is one thing I have to mention. And another thing is that, maybe this is just me, but when you're exploring some of these maps and you have to grab some of these hard to find collectibles, I think that the feature of auto centering would be nice to toggle off. There's no option where I could find where you can't just simply turn off auto centering. It's kind of one of those things where maybe it was just an old school mechanic that they kept, but for me it really kind of drove me nuts. Now granted, the first one was a little more aggressive than the second one, but that being said, again, maybe just something that I would have liked to have seen. So one of the things I haven't even touched up on, and one of the biggest highlights of this game, is the audio. They brought back all the great tunes that we remember and introduced a whole whack of new ones. I haven't even heard of some of these bands, and now they're on my Spotify playlist, which they actually have a Tony Hawk Pro Skater Spotify playlist for you if you want to go and download it, because it is so good. I suggest you check it out. But anyways, that all to say, this game, it is almost perfect. I loved everything about it. Nostalgia was struck in all the right places. I love this game. Honestly, this game is getting a 9.5. It is almost perfect. I loved it. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 is what I would consider a almost perfect remaster and an absolute highlight of 2020. You must check this out if you are a returning fan of the franchise or someone who hasn't really played skateboarding.
All right, that'll wrap up this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, don't forget about the stream coming up on the 18th to the 19th, where we're giving away prizes and a whole lot of games. And of course, we got some developers hitting us up on the stream, talk about their upcoming titles. So, like most of us always like to do, we like to end off the show with one of your highlighted clips. And this week, we've got Pumxa ending things off in some Rainbow Six. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week inside the game.
The diffuser has been recovered. Op 4 neutralized. Mission successful.